Hey, it's Don the Auction Professor. It's Sunday, so it's time for another What Sold on eBay. And as usual, I picked 25 or 30 items. I'm going to talk a little more about some of the items here in this video than I usually do. I'm going to talk about an item specifically in here too that I'm showing you, and some thoughts on it, and some thoughts on the process I do on accepting and pricing and things like that in here too. And this one's a good example where I can make some good comments and explain a little bit on some things here. So we're going to go over to the screen and we're going to show you some of what we sold. Okay, so today, all the items that I have up here, I've had many offers on. These are all items that I've refused offers in the past. I'm just going to go over a little bit on some of that as we go through here, just to give you an idea on thoughts on this. Now, this first item is a telegraph key. I paid 25 bucks for 3 of these. I sold one right off the bat for 75. I took, I think, 55 for the second one. And this one here, I had 3 prior offers, $30 or less for each one of those 3 offers. You know, I know the value on it, obviously, because I had 2 other ones nearly identical to this, and there was no way I was going to let it go that cheap. So for me, I let it run longer. I refused 3 separate offers on this. Again, I've made my money back already off the very first one I sold. After fees and all, I paid for all 3 of these and made a $40 profit from the very first one. The second one netted me, after fees, say, 48, 49 bucks. And now the third one here, I could have just taken 30 and then made a decent profit. But I know the value on this, so I wasn't going to let it go. So again, I let it run for another, I think it was like 4 months, or 20 more cents to let this run and list keep going. So at the end of the day, I took 60 on it. So, you know, it increased my intake, my profit, by another, say, 20 or 30 bucks almost on this item had I not, you know, had I taken one of the other offers. So just keep that in mind. Again, I'm talking about what I have done. You know, you're going to have to make your own judgment calls on a lot of these items. You know, I can only show you what I'm doing and how my business works. I can't show you the specifics towards your business. And again, I don't know where your level of acumen on eBay is. So I don't want to, you know, be telling you should do this or you shouldn't do this, because for other folks, it may have been worth the $30. Maybe you had no, you know, comps to compare it to. You have no clue on the item. You know, you can't ask somebody for every single answer. So, you know, it's not a cut on somebody if you would have taken 30 for it. But for me, I know I can afford to let it set. And that's a bonus, I guess, of doing this for a long time and having a lot of stuff up. Again, it's going to incur you costs. You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to make a lot of mistakes when you first start out. For us, if I got a nickel every mistake I made, I'd have some money, at least from the start of my business, because, of course, we made some mistakes. If you're talking about when eBay first started, you could sell pretty much anything on there, and there wasn't many rules or anything like that. So, you know, I'm not going to count that. I'm going to count modern-day sales in the last, say, 6 years or so when we started our full-time. So let's move on to the next one here. That gives you an idea on the cost. Again, I let it ride until it sold. I wasn't going to give it away. And again, some items now, on the other hand, like this one, I did have 2 other offers on this one. It's only been up 3 days, and I've had 3 offers. I took the third offer, and I sold this card for $27.50. And again, if you look up, you want to do a comp search on this to see where this card would fall, I just put in the city name, Turlock. That's all I did, and did a comp search and seen what the cards sell for. Overall, the highest priced card selling in this category was $23, I think, and 50 cents. And that was a real picture postcard. The next highest one was $21. But I sold this one here in the top dollar range on this city. So, you know, that's what I'm looking at. What's it actually worth? It's probably... It's worth whatever somebody's willing to pay, but if you went by comps, this card's worth about 10 bucks. So again, I turned down 2 offers. It's not an extra charge for me in listing fees because, again, it was only up like 3 days. I had the first offer the very first day. You know, I waited a day or so. I had a second offer before I even looked at the first offer, and then I addressed those 2 offers at the same time before the time frame went out for the first one. And then, you know, I turned them both down at the end of the day because I didn't want to just take $10 for the card since it was just listed. I figured I could have at least got 15 or more out of it. I shot back an offer, you know, at a reasonable discount from my $57.50 at $27.50, and that's how it sold. So again, that was a bin. If I listed this up as an auction for, say, 10 bucks, and there was only 2 people interested, it might have only sold for 10 bucks. It might have only sold for 15 bucks. But the person didn't want to lose the chance on me selling it to somebody else, so he took the $27.50. You know, you can look up yourself, and I know people, you know, I get nasty comments about that from people and nasty messages that say auctions are the way or don't do best offer. If you put prices on some things, you know, right where they're supposed to be, yeah, you might sell them at that. But if I put them higher than that, I definitely 100% sell quite a few at the higher price. Because again, it's a perceived value and they don't want somebody else to get the card because, again, this is a collectible item. There's not a lot of them out there. They have no clue if one will show up. And if it does show up, it could be even more than that. So you've got to take other considering factors in here when you're looking at the price. And again, if I get an offer on something, even if I just listed it and I know what I expect to get out of it, I will do a quick comp search and see if something else is sold in that category or that range or that item to judge on whether I want to take that offer or not. And again, I don't always take them immediately, especially if the item was just listed. I'll let it sit there until until it's getting close to the time where the listing, the offer will be no good. You know, it'll expire. So like if you're doing the cycle like us and you're doing good till canceled, the item may end and relist, which will kill and stop your offers on it. So, and that happened to me the other day. I wasn't paying enough attention and I lost 2 offers on two records. It would have been an extra $50 for that day in sales. No big loss. I'm sure the offers will come back in. I didn't have to have it that day. If the offers come in when it comes around to the end of the next relist cycle, chances are he's going to make the offer again. These are rare records. There's only 1 or 2 examples of these that show up like every 6 months. So, you know, he's got very little chance to get those records if he really wants them. So, again, I should have checked it a little quicker. We were out and I, put it off for a little while and the item ended. It's just one of those things. Sometimes people put offers in within an hour of it ending. And if you're not on, it's going to end anyway and you're not going to get the offer anyway. Because sometimes I'll see an offer, the next morning it's gone, and then I look and see that sure enough, the item ended and relisted. When that happens, the offers are basically just declined. So anyway, let's move on to the next one. Again, I've talked about these here. Now, I put them on sale. I put a little discount. I started these at $57.50. I had several offers on this one because it's basically the Mantis design on this ship. Now, I've always been fascinated by some of these oddball designs. We really enjoyed some of the specials on some of the construction of these and things like that. So I turned down several offers on this one as well. I just let it ride out. It went off of sale, and I just changed the price on some items depending on how long they were up, from $57.50 down to $39.99, I think, on this one. And instead of making an offer, it's sold for $39.99, which was twice what my offers were, more than twice. So anyway, I had a $15 offer, and I think I had like a $14 offer, somewhere in that range on this item. So again, I'm not going to take every offer. This item sat for a little while. I can't promise you that that's the best answer for you. It depends on how much money you have into it, how much money and how much items you actually turn. So when you're first starting out, there might be a big sense that you have to pay attention to your sell-through rate, depending on what you're selling. But when you hit a certain point, your goal is to not be forced into taking a sale just to turn some money to keep your business going. That's every business can have that aspect when they first start out. I had to sell clothing quickly sometimes when we first started off to have the income coming in to either pay bills or anything like that. So, my model doesn't work for everybody, and it doesn't work for everybody depending on where they're at in their business career. Whether you just started off on eBay, you may have to flip items quickly. So again, you're going to have to play around with the information to figure out what's best for you yourself. But for someone who has a bunch of stuff, where you get to the point where you got 5, 10, 20,000 items up, you're going to be able to do more things with your inventory. You're going to be able to play around with more of them. You're going to be able to adjust numbers, adjust many aspects of your listings, and you'll have time to play around with the title. You'll have time to run tests. You'll have time to do the things that are going to make you more money. It's going to take you time to get to that point. There is no quick, easy way. The biggest factor I can tell you is you have to enjoy what you're doing, so that the time you put into doing eBay doesn't get to be a drag where it's a chore or just a normal job that you're just, not happy with. If you love, let's say, buying the items, but you hate listing them, that's going to be your bottleneck part right there. That's going to be what's going to hold you back, that you don't enjoy doing the part that's more important than anything else, which is getting them up so that people can actually buy them. You can buy tens of thousands of dollars worth of items, but until you list those items, you're not going to make any money. The best bet is to get up as many as you can, set yourself up a routine, and list daily if that's what it takes. I like what I'm doing. I get up in the morning, I'm excited. I don't dread doing what I do, which I used to dread my job every day of my life. So, it's something that I enjoy. I've always enjoyed looking at antiques and collectibles and toys and artwork and postcards and military items and things like that. So anyway, let's move on. Again, these items all had offers. That's the key here on this week's video. And again, this one here I had offer for $8. This one I only had one other offer, but I did end up selling this one for $30 on this one here. I got out of this one. So again, and this is just a piece of aluminum. Nothing special. And I've talked about this before. Christmas items, this is basically a Christmas item, or can be. I sell more religious items during Christmas time or heading into Christmas than any other time of the year. The second best one is Easter. People will make small-sized Christmas trees and hang these type of religious medals and awards and stuff from the tree. I've seen them in person, so I know they do that. So, and that's what some people do. Sometimes I'll have people buy a bunch of these. But again, I turned down the offer. Was it worth the offer that I had? Yeah, it probably was. But, I have nothing really into these. These are things you can get at church sales and things for like a whole bag of them for $1 or something. And some churches actually give these away. If they give them away, I usually offer a donation either way. Just because I don't want any hard feelings if anybody would ever come back and say, hey, he just sold those and made some money off your generosity. I'm not looking for that. I'd rather just pay for the items in all honesty so that it's a fair and, there's no disgruntled actions or feelings between me and whatever company or business or locale I'm buying something from. That's just me. I don't, there's nothing wrong with you if you take it and sell it. That's your own opinion. I'm not going to criticize you for having your own opinion or belief. When something like this happens, I think that's a business decision as well, too. So I don't take it as me personally thinking that. As a business, I don't want to be judged for, any discrepancies or immoral acts like that. So anyway, again, that's going to be your call. I'm not criticizing or saying there's anything wrong with doing it either way. That's just my preference. Next item here. Magazines. I put some on sale right after this one, so this person probably could have got this one cheaper. I took $15 for it. It's a small sized. This thing's only like 5 inches by 8 or 9 inches. No, I don't even think it's that much. It's 5 inches by like 7 inches or so. It's a small sized one. It's a local theater stage show kind of thing. Actress on the front. Mary Pickford's very well known, very famous. Big history buff, so I have looked up things like this, look up some of this stuff. You have to enjoy it. You have to be interested. Curiosity on these items is probably the biggest factor in me picking up certain items because, I know some of the history, I just read up on stuff. I'll get some books out from the library from just areas and stuff, I've got ADD and OCD issues, so, for me, I pick up things that maybe other people might not think is necessary, but it probably isn't really necessary for me to go in and study all this stuff, but for some reason, I'm just bound to do it. I just do it. I enjoy it. It drives me to some extent to see this stuff and say, wow, I've got something from this person, and they had this huge history with her and things like that. So anyway, a little side note there. But $15, I had several offers on this. I had one for $3.50. I counted back, I think, at like 24 or something like that. And this is when this was listed. Again, this was up for a little while. I've got about 60 cents into listing it. It was well worth refusing those lowball offers to earn another $6 or $8 for it. And that's after all fees and everything is said and done. So I still have an 80% or higher profit margin across the board, even on this item. Even at the rates that I'm going, it's probably closer to 90% profit margin on this one item. And this one had several offers right after it went up, and I mean right after it went up. I waited them out, I waited till several offers had come in. I didn't turn down, but I countered 2 offers at the very same day, and then a third offer came in before I even got a response or even, a decline or, a counter offer from the other folks, and it sold just because it was a decent offer, and I sold it for $50. Now, this is just a cover off of like a little booklet or something, or part of a folder or a printer sample or something. It's sold because of the gentleman with the baseball. That's usually why these sell. There's some other stuff in here, jumps and stuff, and like it's a sports event with an excursion. It's from a specific area. This kind of stuff sells, even in that condition, even minus it, because the condition itself of this part of it is horrendously nice. 1880s again, I turned down offers, and this was only up for maybe 5 days, if I remember right. I don't remember the length of time for every item, obviously, but I do have a really good memory on the items that I've listed or priced on the ballpark range and when they went up. And almost any item in my 45,000 plus 46, almost 47, I'll have to say, inventory, I can usually tell you when that thing went up or a ballpark range or something that came with it. I've got a pretty good memory because I've looked up most of these items myself prior to listing them to give prices for my employees. This one sold for $25, and again, this was one that was only up for a very short time, and I can always tell that too by looking at the number up here. If you're going to put a bin number or a location number in your listing, put it at the very end of the listing so it's not confused to be like some number that's written on the card. I always put that at the very last thing, just FYI there. But again, this one had several offers, one for 8, one for 12, and I ended up, waiting those out again. I waited, I countered. No counter came back, so I took a $25 offer at that point. Again, that showed me, what the ballpark range and what people were thinking on this. And again, if you're not sure, go back and look up a comp on this. I looked up comps. Literally, if I'm not mistaken, this one actually had, the Cherokee Country Club had other postcards, and maybe even this specific card. It sold for higher than what the other ones have. I can guarantee it by almost $10. So again, I held out. Again, you can't do this all the time. I could not do this myself for a year or two when I first started until I got more inventory in, more turnover on things. But nowadays, I do not worry about turnover rate. I can't express that enough. For me, and turnover rate is not important to my business because we sell stuff at such a high profit margin that I can take less of a turnover rate to a point where it's not even really worth me tracking because of the amount of stuff that we sell. And again, this works to the fact that I have so many items up. So your business model is going to have to be when based on your specific needs. Your needs may be to get a ton of stuff up and do what I do. That may be fine for how you do it, but I can't guarantee you that you're going to be able to get to the same level because you may not have the sourcing. That may be your bottleneck, which it usually is for most people. You won't be able to source the quantity of items that you need to be specific. So again, I'm trying to show you across the board different items that you maybe didn't think of because you can't just make this alone on a couple items or a half a dozen items or 2 dozen items. Sometimes it's going to take you knowing hundreds and hundreds of different niches and avenues and articles to find enough stuff to keep your business going to an increase year after year. I've expanded yearly on new items. I constantly find new items or learn about new items. And again, I am curious. I want to investigate these items. I am, OCD-wise, I can't stop till I find out what I want to know about some of these. And again, I do have some time restraints on it because then I do have an attention deficit disorder. I've had this since I was a child. I was on medication at one time, so I control it the best I can, and it's helpful for the business that I do because, at a certain point it'll just be blah, let me set something aside. And I've talked about this. If I can't find something right away, I don't spend more than a few minutes on it. It's a deciding factor. I set it aside and put it away, and and then I bring the stuff back out at some point, and then I can examine it a second time and maybe have better luck and not be as animate about finding something or wasting too much time on it. So again, I have a time factor that I try to always stand to on most researching of items. Unless I know the item is going to be something or has a real high potential to be horrendously high valued, then it's a different story. I might spend extra time doing it. In some cases, when I think it's a high dollar item, I can't stop until I find that price. But I'm into it either way. I enjoy looking these up. Again, this one's another one of the religious items. Had several offers on it. One for $5 was the lowest. I don't remember the second offer. But again, this one was up for a year and a half. So again, it's not a ton of, it's not even $1 to list this item for a year and a half. So it's worth waiting to get $27.50 or $30 out of an item like this. It's just a small piece of aluminum. I get these things at church sales. There's a handful of church sales that I go to every single year, religiously, every time, and there's some sales that always have this type of material there in quantity, and I buy all of them. Most of the other folks that'll come in, they'll sit there with the jeweler's loop, which I bring in too, but I don't rush to be the first one in the door, because even if I don't find all the silver, everybody doesn't, pay attention to the cheapo-looking ones, but I still make a ton of money from them. So anyway, I sold quite a few religious items this week. And quite a few actually. Again, multiple offers. This one I had a small offer on 5. I had another one for 10. I sold it for $14.50 is what I took out of this. And, this is Thundercats. You have to know a little something. This one came with another figure. It's like a companion figure to the main action figure itself. So anyway, let's move on here. Again, the last item wasn't a huge value, but I did make more money out of it. It did increase my profit margin almost to the 90% mark. This one here I had several offers on as well, too. One low wall offer for 10, another one for 17, and I sold it for 30. So, and again, look up the comps on these. Missing Link's first appearance, Reed Richards. I do know quite a bit about comic books. As I said, I did collect comic books at one time. The person who photographed it actually left my sticker on it, unfortunately. But anyway, it's still sold, so I just let it ride. He did report that he accidentally left it on there, so I did see it, but I let it ride. It just wasn't worth reshooting a bunch of photos. And again, time factor in here. Keep your time factor in play. Now, here's one that I had like 5 offers on it. Now, I saw 2 comps on this when I first listed it, and they went in the 225 to, I think, like 240-ish. Somewhere in that range. Now, here's another example. I had 6 offers on this one. The last one sold for $190, and that's the only comp for this one that I could find. Now, I know Mark's toys sell very well. These are Mark's. There's 50 soldiers in here. Just as soldiers, I have sold 50 soldiers like this from like the Iwo Jima set or something along that line for, $75 to $100 easy. Now, this is bagged. This has never been opened. I paid $14 for this at an antique mall myself. So, I researched it in the mall and saw that comp. The comp has since been dropped off eBay. I wasn't going to play around. I knew what this would sell for, so I let it ride. I refused 6 different offers. I didn't technically refuse them. I counted every one of those and then just let it ride. I've had this for, let's say, a year and 3 months would be an honest rep on what I had this for lengthwise. So again, it's 45 cents to list this for a year. So I could have taken $60 for it in that range many times. I think the highest offer I had out of those 6 was 75. I wasn't going to do that. I know the figures alone, I could have opened these and sold them spread out for $75. So, you've got to know something about your item. I wasn't in a hurry to sell them. I only had $14 into them. I bought a bunch of stuff from the same place, and the items were paid for by some of the other items I sold from that lot that I bought. That's the goal. Sell a couple items from the bunch you get counted as a bulk purchase, sell a couple items and pay for the entire run from just 1 or 2 things out of there. That's always what I do. I knew I had value here. I held out and it sold for $225. So again, I made, close to $200 profit off of this one item alone from that purchase. So again, I held out. Let's move on here. Now here's another example. I had several offers, lowball offers on this one. This is a quack medicine person. Schapertz made quack medicine, but this is also for a saloon. He made German stomach bitters. Now anything bitters sells very well. This I could have held out for more. I had 4 of these. I listed 2 for $65, I think, each. I took $40 a piece for them. On this, there wasn't much comps. The only comp I could find was really low in the $15 or $20 range. So this is a small size card, smaller than a business card. I sold the first 2 from this 4-card set for $80. I would have not have sold those had he not bought them all. And he bought all 4 of them at the end of the day. So I sold each one of these for $40 a piece, $160. And, I had several offers on them. So again, I held out for more money. A $10 offer wasn't going to cut it, especially since I just listed it. And when I counted the offer, I literally tell them this was just listed today or yesterday. Basically just tell them, hey, it's just listed. I can't take that low. It's a desirable card. Could I have gotten more for it? It's possible. Who knows? But the guy bought all 4 of them. So I don't have to sit here and pick on, one sells now and then I wait 10 years for the next one to sell. You got to have a person on there to buy it. So you've got to make your own judgment on some of these. And I took the judgment that it was better to sell them all. I have nothing into these. Pennies. So, I made like $145 after fees, somewhere in that range right off the bat. You can't knock that. And it was sold right off the bat. So, it was only up for a couple days. Another one, again, $40. I sold 4 for $40. I'm not showing you them all because they're just the same thing. I've got a roller skating label offer, which we will wait. Let me just kick that off. Magazines. Again, this one sold for $14.50. It's an interesting subject. It's a small-sized magazine, like 5x9 or something along that line. It's even damaged, so I was happy taking that for it. And it sold to somebody that's bought many, many, many items. I don't care if they're reselling it or not. I'm happy with the profit margin. I have a quarter or 50 cents in this. I bought a bunch of these, the same style of children's magazines, for like a quarter or 50 cents. I don't remember which one I paid for which. Probably this one was a quarter, and some of the better-looking copies were 50 cents. This one was up for maybe 3 hours. Now, I went by comps on this one alone, so this one I did take right away because chances are the next offers, or if I countered, wouldn't have come in. This is Erdman. Now, his industrial works you can find comps on, so I knew that. I've had similar cards from this person before, and I took the offer. It was $30 if I remember right. And, it was only up for a little while, but it was well over anything that's sold. Not quite 3 times, but, well over 2 times what the last couple have sold for. And I've had other ones of this same card before, and they're not huge movers, but I put at least 3 times sometimes in some of the rarer cards than I expect. And stove cards overall do sell fairly well for us. Next one here, several offers on this one. It was only up for a little while. The person here actually countered with an offer too as well, and I sold it. Actually, this one sold for $14.50. So again, I took more than what it was. The offers were lower. It's not a rare card, but it's something that doesn't show up very often. The name of who did it's actually why it's sold. If I remember right, the person who actually did make the highest offer had the same last name as one of the people here. Gariette or something like that was the name. This one here too, I took I think it was $20 on this one, and it was up for a little while. It's not anything super fancy. It's chunky. I had several offers in the $10 range. I took twice that when I actually sold it. So, again, I've got like 40 cents into listing this, $1 into buying it. And it is bone, vintage horn, basically, is what it is. Not bone, I should say, but horn. Okay, now the next one here, this one's another one. I had several offers on it. I had a $50 offer, like a $65 offer, and then somebody offered me, I think it was $95 was the third one, and that one was the first one. So, and I actually sold this card for $150 after I discounted it just slightly. The early baseball cards will always sell. Now, this is different than some of them. Unfortunately, this one didn't have advertising on it. Had it had advertising on the back, this one probably would have sold in the $250 range. Center field, early baseball. It's actually circa 1890s, I found out after the fact. It's a known card. This one actually shows up in baseball price guides from the Pioneer Age. So again, $150 I took for this one after refusing 3 offers. Let's move on here. This one I had 2 offers for prior to accepting the $20 offer I sold it for. Again, you just have to know where these fall. That $20 offer was more than some of the other ones that sold. It's in the top, say, 25% of what these sell for. And there are comps on, so I can compare them to. I have had one of these before. I have another one of these since, actually. This one I had several offers. It is damaged, so I did end up taking $20 on it. I refused a $10 offer, and I think it was $8 was the other one because of the damage. I listed it for a flat $19.99 after several of the offers came in, and figured $19.99 I would probably sell it as an auction, and sure enough, it did sell as an auction for $20, and it sold to somebody who's bought many ones from me before. This one isn't really known, if I remember right. I don't think there was a prior on this. I think this was a Harris & Son, Harris & Son, if I wasn't mistaken. So this is an actually engraved one. It's in terrible condition. So, you got to expect some lower prices on some items. But anyway, I had 2 offers, and I ended up selling it a different way. And sure enough, I figured that would be safe. Now in this, I realized that, hey, the buy it now with the best offer, I was getting 2 lowball offers on it. I knew it would take a forced sale like that. Listing as an auction means that anybody could have had it at that point. So whoever bid it's going to get it. And I knew I had watchers on it, so, I did it that way. I actually had 2 bids. So same person bid twice, but still, that's fine. Next item here, this one I had a couple lowball offers, $5 and like 7. I did sell it for $14.50. It's not in the best condition. It's a little higher than they usually sell for anyway, so I was fine with that. These I had several offers. $8 was one, or $8.50 I think, and then I had a 14. I didn't do anything other than do a counter, and then they sent some lowball back offers, so then I declined it. I waited. This was only up for like 4 months or less because I actually showed this in a haul, these figures, and then I sold them for full price just a shortly while after those two offers I refused. So $24.50 on them. Now, these I had several offers on. These were not up a ton of time, but I had 6 of these. They're identical in every way. A person made me an offer. It was a lowball offer on a couple of them. I turned those down. And then I had another offer on like 4 different ones that they wanted, and they were still, in the 20-some-odd dollar range for each one. So I might have got 100. I still would have made a ton of money on them, but these are engraved. These have Chinese scenes on them. They're spectacular image-wise, quality, graphics-wise. And again, I have 6 of these. And I ended up taking, after refusing several offers on some of them, not the whole lot, it wouldn't have sold. I didn't have offers on all of them in the first round. So I actually then waited, and I did get an offer on all of them. He emailed me, would I take $45 if he bought them all? And that was well over what I've seen a couple individual ones similar to this sell for, and it was well over the offers that I had on the 4 that I could have sold. So I sold all 6 of these for $45 a piece, one day, only up for a little while, and boom, they were all gone. Good profit margin. It increased my profits, almost to the 90% as well on these as well, after fees, after my labor costs, after everything, because again, I charge shipping, so the person only had to pay $3.50 for all 6 of these cards. So he even saw a bonus with that. I don't always send out an immediate invoice. In that, partially because if they see the invoice originally with all that shipping included, 6 times the $3.50, they're going to see this huge amount. They're going to see a grand total at the bottom that's, much higher than, they wish to pay for it. So once I discount it, it looks like they're saving, again, a bunch of money, even though I would have done it no matter what. So again, it's a perceived value on the shipping. I think I've got a couple of these. Yeah, another one. I didn't put them all up here. It just wasn't worth showing you every single one. But again, I had 6 of these. This was in a haul. I had a couple offers on it in the $20, $25 range. Refused them all. Figured I'd just let it ride out. This is a New York Central System, train system from New York. It's a 50-year anniversary watch. It's not gold. It was gold-filled, gold-plated. It's still, a decent-looking watch. I didn't put a battery in it. I didn't test it. No idea at that point. So, I took $50 for it at the end of the day after refusing several offers. This one I had a couple offers on. Actually, this one I had one offer on prior. I refused it. It was $8. So I said, what the heck? I'm just going to let it ride. I wasn't too worried because I sell some of these almost every day of the week. This one here, I ended up selling it for $15. Actually, $15 this one sold for. And another photo here. Again, I had several offers on these. Somebody offered me $9.99 on a bunch of these photos. I could have sold, a couple $100 worth to the same person at $9.99. But I figured if I waited it out, I would do better off. I wasn't in a hurry for the money. I've already paid for these from the first grouping that listed and was sold. And I bought them in a big bulk. So I have very little money, less than $1 in each one of these photos, well less than $1. So I held out, and this person bought 3 of the photos he bought were $25, and the 4th one was $30. The first one he put an offer in was $30, so I was okay. And once I saw he was buying more, I waited to see how many came in before I decided on taking the offers. I could have countered back at $30. I might have been able to take it, but this person's bought a few more from me in the past. I want to continue to see this gentleman at my store. So you got to give a little bit to get some. So anyway. So just alone with the profit, I would have made for selling those at $9.99, I've well more recouped that because I've got $105 back from 4 photos right off the bat. And I sell these all the time. You saw another one just before. I've sold others this week besides just these. Again, the ones I'm showing you are ones that I had offers on prior to accepting this offer. So again, same person. He bought this one too. He bought this one too. And again, 3 of them were $25 and the 4th one was $30. Here's another thing. This one sat for a little while. I had an offer, really low offer. It was like $5 or $6 when I first put this up. I let it ride. It's got some pinup things. It's an advertisement piece. I ended up with 20 out of it for an extra 60 cents in listing it. So, I don't mind if it stays up for a little while. You can tell by the background alone that this was up for a while because I don't even use that. I haven't used that in a long time. So anyway, I let stuff ride because, again, I have stuff selling every single day of the week. We've got enough up, so the quantity of stuff that does sell is large, so I don't have to worry. Again, this isn't a game you can play when you first start out, so just please keep that in mind. This one here, I had several offers on prior to it. This wasn't up that long by the number, and I had some offers fairly quick. Atomic Rock, it's a well-known, it's like a pop rocker. The backside is Lost World, which is from a movie. It's from a book too as well. So anyway, I ended up taking 35 on it, and that's about top end. The top, say 10-15% of what this record sells for. And again, you can't just use eBay for pricing. You have to use PopPsych, Discogs, or maybe some other sites that are out there. I've went over, I think, 3 or 4 different sites that we do use for pricing records. There's only one that I pay for. All the rest are pretty much free to use. And the last item here, this one has some damage, and let me show you the damage. The corner is damaged there. The corner is damaged in the back. It's got some wrinkles. It's got some staining, water damage, it looks like. I didn't expect much out of this one. I paid 50 cents for it. I looked at the comps. They're all over the place, but I came up with a ballpark average for this. I wasn't going to take the $5 right after it listed. I ended up with $10 for it to let it sit there for an extra 3 months. So 15 cents to let it ride, at the most 15. Because obviously with my 10,000 free listings on each of the stores, it brings it down to like 4 cents, like 4.25 cents or somewhere in that range. So anyway, not a big cost to let it ride, to double the amount of sailing on the item. Again, I used comps to judge on what this sells for. In better condition, I would have went for 20 or 25 bucks. I figured I'd crank something out of it. And again, don't just pass up things if they're dirt cheap because you think they're damaged and won't sell, because there's a lot of items that will. You have to research it, though. There's many items that if they're 50 cents a quarter or something, or even up to $1, so I'll just take a chance on and don't look up, only by my own personal knowledge of buying tons of stuff like this. You know, I buy hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of items a week, sometimes in massive bulk, so I can judge things better than some folks who don't buy that quantity. Obviously, there's people who can blow me away with this, so again, I'm not trying to put a brag on it. You know, I've done this for a while. This is me. This is how I am. You know, I'm not trying to be anything that I'm not. This is just me. You know, if you don't like it, I'm sorry. I'm not going to change who I am to please a few people. Again, I'm not out here trying to be flashy and, you know, just get the views. I'm actually out here because I like what I do and I like talking about what I do. So anyway, but this is the last item that I was going to show you today. Again, this is just a random selection. This is what I have for you today. These are all items that I refused offers on in the past. I try to give you some ideas and some thoughts into that, so hopefully that gives you some better ideas on how I work my methodology, how I work my store, how I use the bin prices to maximize my return on my investment. That is the best number one thing I can say, is that the bins honestly, routinely, across the board, increase my profit margins. You can look up the comps yourself and do a comparison run. You can go up and do this yourself. You can experiment yourself in a few minutes a day. Look up some comps on a couple items that you're curious about. Pick one specific area. Pick some comps. Look through the comps and see. Write down some numbers if it takes you to see it that way. Look at what's sold higher. Look and see if those are bins. Look at what's sold in the top tier of this. Write down how many of those were bins and write down how many of those were auctions. I can almost bet you across the board, depending on the category, especially in collectibles and antiques, that more sold for a higher amount as a bin, and it's probably 60% or higher, sold higher than the auction as a bin. So you are going to get more money out. Even as a with best offer, they still sold higher than a bin. As a standard bin, and they still sold higher than an auction for the most part, on average, across the board in collectibles and antiques. I've done the math, I've done the calculations, I've done the research. That's factual. So, you know, look it up yourself, please. You know, don't always just take my word on something. And I don't take most YouTubers' words on something. I don't take most words on anything. If I read it in a book or something, I have to judge where that book came from. You know, it has to be from a credible source. From a university is always a plus for my book. You know, for any book or anything I'm looking up. What's the history of the person who wrote the book? Does he have, you know, advanced degrees and spent a lot of time in the field to understand the field? Does he know it? Is this his first book with no degree? be just judged on opinion. So, I mean, you got to take these things all into account here. Have empirical evidence to back up your statements and what you're doing with this. And that's what I do. I research it so I know. I'm not doing the research per se for anybody else but myself. So I know what I need to set my business at. This is advancing your business, and this is how you do it, by researching and spending time to be able to price things correctly, being able to avoid buying junk that's just not worth selling. You got to be able to tell, and I can't show you everything. I can only show you the door and how to get to it. I can't answer every question for you because my answer may not be the correct one for your specific business. Your model has to be geared towards the stuff that you find, the stuff that you are better able to understand and better able to price because you understand the knowledge and stuff about the item. You understand why it's priced the way it is. You understand what type of people would collect that item and what type of money you can get out of that item based on your collectors for that item. So anyway, that's what I have for you today. Well, there you go. There's some more items that we sold. Again, it's just a random selection, 25 or 30 items. I try to limit to that because I do talk a lot and I add some comments throughout it. And I don't want to be running into hour-long or 2-hour-long video about this. So, again, that's just some items. I threw some more information in there. I'm going to try and do this every time as I always do. Well, there you go. That's what we have for you today. If you liked the video and you enjoyed it, please hit the like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified when we post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell a friend.